Everybody get hype because it's Pick'em time. Everybody loves Pick'em and Crystal Ball. The thing to know about Crystal Ball is it's so hard. No matter how good you are at analysis, no matter how many games you watch, it's super hard because a lot of the questions are super random. Like anything could happen. But that's what makes it fun too, is that anything could happen. So I'll let you know some of my thought process, but keep in mind that Pick'ems is so unpredictable. What will be the duration of the longest game? 45 to 49.59. This is consistent with historical longest games for Worlds. How many pentakills will there be at Worlds? 2. This is relatively consistent with historical. I think it was 3 and 2 the 2 previous years. I don't see a particularly pentakilly meta. Which Drake will be killed the most? This one is mostly RNG because in most leagues the drakes are randomly distributed. I think Infernal, though, maybe a tiny bit more motivating to teams to take it. How many Baron steals? 3 to 5. This is consistent with historical results. I think there were 7 Baron steals in 2022, but then only 3 or 4 in 2023. So I don't, again, see a lot of reason to think there will be a lot of Baron steals, so 3 to 5 seems pretty good. And reverse sweeps, only 7 BO5s, so that does not feel like a lot of chances for a reverse sweep. 0 seems like the most statistically likely to me. Who will be played in most different roles at Worlds? I think Poppy's a pretty safe bet. She's really strong. You can play her in support, jungle, or top lane. So probably, I think, the most likely of all the flex champions to actually be picked in all 3 of those roles. Who will be picked the most? This is so hard. And I mean, Pick'em is always hard, but this Worlds is particularly hard because they're nerfing all 15 of like the 16 most played champs in LCK or something. One of the champs they did not nerf was Cassante, and he was already really popular in almost every region. And so if they're not nerfing him, I think I have good reason to believe that he'll be the most popular pick. Who will be banned the most? This one's really hard because the meta is always shifting. Who's being banned is always shifting. But again, one of the champions that they didn't nerf on 14.18, although they did nerf her on 14.17, is Ashe. So one of the champions who was not nerfed on 14.17 or 14.18 was Renekton, and his ban rate was already pretty high. The top lane meta is looking really stale, like there's only going to be 5 or 6 picks. And so that means that maybe banning in the top lane will have extra value. So Renekton is my choice for that. Other reasonable picks that you could look at: Jax, maybe if he comes into the meta. Sejuani is getting picked a lot. Rumble, if the nerfs don't hit him hard enough. Ashe, if the nerfs don't hit her hard enough. Tristana, if the nerfs don't hit her hard enough. Ezreal is also really popular in a lot of these regions and gets banned a lot. Most deaths, I was really torn here between Cassante and Rel. If you actually look at the data from last Worlds, Cassante almost died as much as Rel per game, just almost 3 deaths per game. And so if you assume that Cassante will get picked a little bit more than Rel this time, which I think he might because of the Rel nerfs, then he would actually be predicted to have more deaths in many situations than Rel if he's picked more than Rel. So that's what I went for here. Who will have the highest win rate? I think this one is probably the hardest of all of them to predict because it has to be a champ that is picked like barely over 5 times, usually between 5 and 10 times. And then it has to be picked by good players or good teams against weaker teams to get that like 80-90% win rate. My pick here is Ornn. He's played by a lot of strong teams. He's good in the meta, but he's hopefully not going to be played so much that that brings his win rate down. Other reasonable picks for this category: Ivern, Lucian, Camille, Skarner, Blitzcrank, Mordekaiser, Renata. And other reasonable picks for most deaths: Leona, Sejuani, Maokai, I think are reasonable as well. Who will play the most different champions at Worlds? I picked Delight. If you look at his match history, he is just a variety machine. It seems baked into his DNA, especially in his recent games, to just be on a constant rotation of champions. It doesn't look like he kind of picks the same thing, like he gets into this mode where I'm going to pick this champion a lot. He's just constantly rotating. He has a huge champion pool, and he's on a team that's going to go pretty deep in the tournament, so that gives you extra chances to play the most different champions. Who will get most kills in a single game? Who will have the highest KDA at Worlds? Who will get the most First Blood kills at Worlds? I saw these questions as highly correlated, that a really strong KDA player is going to have a strong KDA. They're likely to have a lot of kills in a single game, and they're likely to get a lot of First Bloods. Pays is one of the highest KDA players in all the leagues, and he's on an amazing team, which is probably going to make a really big run, which gives you more chances to, say, get the most kills in a single game. Totally reasonable that an 80 carry player is going to get First Blood. A lot of more defensive ganking junglers, Vi, Sejuani, Maokai, who would be eager to give that First Blood kill over to Pays. A lot of engaged supports that mean you can get that First Blood just 2v2 in the bot lane without your jungler. So I think a reasonable pick for that. Who will get at least one pentakill at Worlds? Historically, these almost always happen in the play-in stage when the teams are not as good. So I think that Supa is a solid choice here, especially because he got 2 pentakills, I believe, during the 2024 year. So totally reasonable pick. Which team from a minor region will advance through? PSG Talon. If you watch the games of the minor regions, they seem pretty clearly the best. Which team will win the shortest game at Worlds? BLG, I think, is going to make a deep run. I think they're going to be the team that wins Worlds. That gives you a lot of chances to have the shortest game. They're also seeded 1 in the group stage, which means hopefully they'll be pitted against a very bad team at the beginning of the Swiss stage, and they'll be able to get some really fast wins against those really bad teams. Which team will have the most Baron steals at Worlds? This is a really weird one because you kind of have to be losing to get a Baron steal, because it means the enemy team is on the Baron and you come in and steal it. So I was thinking, what's a team that's going to be losing constantly but never out of the tournament? T1, of course. They scream chaos to me that they'll be losing and trying everything they can. Owner seems like a very type of jungler who will, go in and steal the Baron. So that is my pick for this one. Which team will win Worlds? BLG has been so dominant, just dominating even top esports in the LPL. Gen.G and HLE have been kind of going back and forth, taking shots off each other, but BLG has really just been consistently dominant. But I can't really stress how good all these top 4 teams are. BLG, TES, Onwa Life, and Gen.G. It really could be any 4 of them, but I personally think this is Elk's year. I think he's possibly the best 80 carry in the world, and I would love to see him finally get the title that he deserves. In one of the recent Worlds, BLG was pretty high up on the list of teams who played lots of different champions. And again, if you go deeper in the tournament, you have a higher chance of playing more champions. So between the fact that they already like to play a lot of champions and I think they're going to go the distance this year, I put BLG for my team that will play the most different champions. Let's look at pick'ems. Here for the play-ins pick'em, I picked the major region champs, Mad Lions and 100 Thieves. They usually get through the play-in stages. And then I picked both PCS representatives. I was watching some of the VODs, and the VODs I saw of SHG just looked stronger than the VODs I saw of GAM. They're called like the PCS second seed, but it's kind of weird because it looks like they're from Japan. They were the #1 Japan team, and then they played in the PCS playoffs and lost to Talon, but they took a game from them in the final series, and they were looking quite strong. The top laner on Kennen was looking quite strong, stronger than when I saw GAM dominating VKE in that finals. Even though they were winning, they didn't look as strong to me as SHG did. So those are my picks for the play-ins. But there's still 6 days before these get locked in, so please post in the comment section if you have a different opinion, if you have different thoughts. If I made any horrible mistakes, please let me know in the comment section. And it's looking to be a really fun world, so like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.